Members of Parliament, support staff, radio listeners, TV viewers, all viewing via social media, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning and welcome to Central Committee number 15 for today, Tuesday, February the 10th. At this time, I want to give a special word of welcome to the chairman, Mr. Alphonse Gomes, and the other members and representatives of the General Audit Chamber present here today. We have established a quorum of 5 factions. I invite you to stand for a moment of silence. Thank you. Notices of absence have been received from the members Otley and Kotai. No notices of lateness. Are there any notifications from the floor? We do have the notification or a notification by MP Lacruz, to whom I give the floor at this time.
A blessed morning, Madam Chair Lady, Griffier, honorable esteemed panel before us coming to give us a presentation, my fellow colleagues in Parliament and all those listening through social media. Madam Chair Lady, I heard the Prime Minister this morning on the radio, and I found it extremely comical. That's the only word I could describe it as, seeing that after the motion on Monday, or the past days ago, yesterday, an article came out saying nothing is moving government, legal, and personnel affairs departments under chronic stagnating shortage, stagnating any progress. Madam Chair Lady, the second point that I heard many in here said the motion made no sense, stated under the Prime Minister's responsibility, these departments have consistently failed to provide adequate support and services to other ministries, hereby direct contributing to the operational failures within these ministries and undermining effective public administration. Madam Chair Lady, the Prime Minister is living on a cloud. He does not seem to understand what the problem is, but he did mention that no plan was made. He needs to analyze the plan, and he needs to, that was my advice to him. So, Madam Chair Lady, with this, I yield. I hope that the Prime Minister understands the responsibility he has to make things happen within the government of St. Martin. Thank you, Madam Chair Lady.
Thank you, MP Lacruz, for that notification. There are no further notification indications, so we continue with the agenda point for this meeting. The agenda point for this meeting is the annual report of 2024 from the General Audit Chamber. This document is listed on the 721 of the parliamentary year 24-25, and it's dated the 14th of March, 2025. As mentioned, the report by the General Audit Chamber of 2024 was received on March 14, 2025. It is IS document number 721. At this time, I again want to welcome the chairperson, board members, as well as the board member, as well as the Secretary General, and to this meeting. And I immediately give the floor to the chairman, Mr. Gomes, who will start with some introductory remarks and presentation. Mr. Gomes, you have the floor.
Madam Chair of Parliament, Mr. Sarah Westcott Williams, honorable members of Parliament, Griffier, Parliament support staff, radio listeners, TV viewers, and all others following this meeting via various social media channels. Members of the media, good morning. On behalf of the board and staff of the General Audit Chamber, we would like to take this opportunity to express our appreciation to the members of Parliament and the Presidium for the invitation to appear before you this Central Committee meeting to present our annual report for the year 2024 that was published in March 2025. The board of the General Audit Chamber consists of 3 members and 1 deputy member, supported by a Secretary General and his support staff. Today, representatives of the General Audit Chamber are to my far right, our Vice Chair, Mrs. Mandy Dahl Ofringa, to my right, Mrs. Cheryl Peterson, and to my left, Mr. Keith de Jong, our Secretary General. I am Alphonse Gomes, the current chairman of the board. Not present today is our deputy member, Mrs. Amanda Weimer Gomes. The role of the General Audit Chamber is to provide independent, objective, and professional assurance on the management of public finances. We do so on behalf of Parliament and ultimately the people of St. Martin. Our work is guided by the principles of independence, integrity, transparency, and professionalism in line with international auditing standards. As a High Council, we operate independently from both government and Parliament. The independent operation of the Audit Chamber is very important for a healthy functioning chamber. Cooperation and contacts with other audit chambers within the kingdom and other institutions continues on a regular basis. In an environment of increasing fiscal pressure, complex public programs, and heightened public expectations, the importance of strong external oversight cannot be overstated. Sound public financial management is not only about compliance with rules, it is about ensuring value for money, effective service delivery, and public trust in our institutions. Madam Chair, we are honored to appear before you today on behalf of the Audit Chamber to present our annual report for the year 2024, which will be facilitated in a few minutes by the Secretary General, Mr. Keith de Jong. Our presentation that we will provide within short of our annual report will highlight the works that we have done in 2024. From our various reports completed within the year, you will see a reflection of how public resources entrusted by the government of St. Martin, Parliament, and the citizens have been managed, safeguarded, and utilized, and where applicable, the necessary key findings and recommendations were provided to the ministries in question. The annual report covers the results of financial, compliance, and performance audits conducted across various ministries. Our audits examine not only whether funds were spent in accordance with the law, but also whether they were spent economically, efficiently, and effectively. It also entails a compilation of our works and relationships with other stakeholders. 2024 was a year of innovation and successes for the General Audit Chamber. In total, we completed 6 reports and provided several advices. We launched our WhatsApp channel and our interactive environment tool 2.0. We were featured in several international magazines via an article in the Intersci Journal and Eurosci magazine. We saw the Audit Chamber enhance its independence with the financial management of its personnel expenditures and continue to have a completed financial report conducted by an external recognized accounting firm. Our financial operations remain within our allotted budget, and we continue to be represented by our chairman as an executive board member and the Caribbean Association of Supreme Audit Institutions, known as CARISI. Financial transparency and public accountability are essential to us. As a responsible institution and cognizant of spending public funds during difficult times, we continue to monitor our expenditures where our operations and staffing are concerned. Timely reporting of our operational expenditures have always been submitted to the Minister of Finance, and, as mentioned earlier, an independent external auditor prepared our financial report regarding our operational expenditures annually. The Audit Chamber considers itself as a partner to government and Parliament. We are here to facilitate Parliament with our findings and recommendations of audits completed. A central purpose of our work is not merely to identify shortcomings, but to promote constructive change. The various reports highlighted in our 2024 annual report contains clear, practical, and prioritized recommendations addressed to audited entities and, where relevant, to the government and Parliament. These recommendations focus on strengthening governance and accountability frameworks, improving financial management and reporting, enhancing program effectiveness and performance measurements, addressing systemic risks rather than isolated incidents. I would like to emphasize that the effectiveness of audit work ultimately depends on implementation. We therefore welcome the increased attention given to follow-up mechanisms and encourage Parliament to continue exercising oversight over the implementation of audit recommendation. Madam Chair, at this time, I would now like to turn the floor over to our Secretary General, Ms. Keith de Jong, to facilitate our presentation. At the end of our presentation, we are open for any questions or comments you may have. We thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gums, for those opening remarks and presentations. Members of Parliament, our Secretary General has also just put the document. For your convenience, he has also just shared that again. In addition to that, I think it's important to note, given our discussion in the meeting yesterday with the Minister of Romi, that those answers have been provided. So the point that we were making yesterday regarding the meeting and getting the answers from the Minister in writing, we have received those. Thank you once again, Mr. Gums, and I now give the floor to Mr. de Jong. Mr. de Jong, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Chair Lady. Once again, good morning, members of Parliament. And though we are well into 2026, I would still like to wish everybody a Happy New Year. And we are pleased to have been invited to present our annual report 2024. This report was published in March 25 and sent, as customary, before the legally required deadline of July 1st, 2025. And the reason why the Audit Chamber is able to turn around our annual reports, usually within the first quarter of every year, is because basically our efficient planning and our financial results, as my chairman mentioned as well, are reviewed by an external auditor. It's also included in the annual report. We anticipate finalizing our 2025 annual report by the end of this month, and Parliament will receive the completed version shortly thereafter. And obviously, we're discussing the 2025 annual report in October of 2026 as per the planning of Parliament. Of course, we can discuss it sooner after publication, should you wish to do so. So today we'll briefly discuss our legal framework, our tasks and authorities, what is it exactly that it is what we do, our 2024 products and our achievements, the budget and the actuals. We recently launched a tool called Audit Intelligence, and obviously at the end of the presentation there's room for questions and answers. I expect the presentation to last about 15 to 20 minutes. So starting with the legal framework, just like Parliament, we are a High Council of State, and just like Parliament, we are an independent institution. We are established in the Constitution per Article 74. And our national ordinance on the General Audit Chamber regulates who does what, when, and how. Our board consists of 3 persons who are in the meeting today. Additionally, we can have a maximum of 3 deputy members. We currently have 1, as my chairman mentioned as well. Board meetings are held every 2 weeks, and the meetings are confidential. But how does one become a board member at the General Audit Chamber? Well, when a vacancy opens up, the board drafts a recommendation list consisting of 3 persons. This list is binding, and then it's up to Parliament to nominate 2 of the candidates from that recommendation list. And afterwards, the 2 names are sent to the Governor, Prime Minister, for the final selection. And this also goes for reappointments, which is interesting because if you, for example, look at our colleagues at the Council of Advice, members can be appointed immediately, and potential members are not nominated by Parliament. So our secretariat in 2024 consisted of 4 full-time employees and 3 part-time consultants. Then our tasks and authorities. What is it exactly that we do? Our prime directive is to check if government spends public funds as intended. Investigations are referred to as audits. Our resources include a range of financial auditing, certified public performance auditors, legal capacities, expertise in economics, and public administration, which we are very proud of, given that we yet have to find a supreme audit institution smaller than ours in the world. Parliament can use our recommendations to call ministers to account and also to execute your supervisory role. Using our reports will improve the financial management of our country. It's up to you to use them. So why do we audit? Our goal is to provide information to improve the public financial management. We identify shortcomings and we recommend improvements. Government auditing is important to provide an objective assessment whether public funds are managed responsibly. And by performing that independent check on public spending, we provide credible and timely audit results to Parliament, government, and the general public. Persons or entities managing public funds, they are legally required to provide us with information, and this also includes subsidized entities. Government-owned companies are private entities and unfortunately do not fall under our constitutional scope of reviewing public funds. We report short and sweet, and we try to avoid technical terms. We publish in both Dutch and English, and our reports are available on our website, ars6m.org. So, we perform 3 types of audits, which are the compliance audits. That deals with the question if the law was followed, basically. Performance audits, where we evaluate where there is value for money. In other words, was a specific budget used effectively to achieve the intended purpose? And with the integrity audit, we review the integrity of officials in their function. However, with the introduction of the integrity chamber, we believe that our resources can be more effective in the field of compliance and performance auditing. Then our 2024 publications. We presented our annual report 2024 within 3 months after the start of the year. And the report contains information about our role and tasks, what I'm presenting today, but also on the audits that we carried out in 2024. The advices we provided, our staffing, our budget, realization, and also our results pertaining to social media. So as my chairman mentioned, during 2024, we produced a total of 6 reports, which were sent to Parliament as well. And we included a diversity of topics like the audit on the 2022 financial statements of government, the 2023 financial statement of the General Pension Fund of APS, we audited, a review on the allocation of road tax, and also a review of government renting offices, and last but not least, a mini audit on government's Christmas voucher program. Just to go into some of the audits that we did very briefly, regarding the audit on the financial statements of the country 2022, I can be very brief. Over the past 12 years, the information has been deficient in the financial statement, often resulting in a disclaimer of opinion, meaning it is impossible to determine whether the financial statements are adequate, primarily because of the lack of information. Currently, the 2023 financial statements are under review by the internal accountant, SOAB. And after receipt of their report, you can expect our required report within the legal 6-week deadline. And we can only express the hope that the financial management will improve to allow timely delivery of these important documents regarding the financial cycle. After all, it's reporting on the use of public funds and accountability matters. You have budget authority and are entitled to timely and accurate financial reporting. In 2024, we also published our review on the allocation of road tax. By law, the money collected from the road tax is supposed to be placed in a road fund for the use of upgrading of the infrastructure. And this falls under the responsibility of the Minister of Romy. In practice, the money goes into the government coffers and is used for general government expenditures. In 2022, we did our first audit on this topic, and we found little to no improvement in 2024. Government collected 10.8 million guilders in road tax, and 1/3 of this money was spent on infrastructure. The rest went into the government general budget. We recommended that Romy develops a realistic, multi-annual plan to improve the infrastructure in phases, either financed through the road fund or, if Parliament decides to repeal this law, through other means of financing, for example, capital investments or the general fund. However, we do know that as long as the law is in place, the law should be followed. By approving a national budget that allocates the funds from the road tax income towards different objectives is not in line with the law, which by oath you promise to uphold. Then the audit on rent reduction. Back in 2022, liquidity support loans by the Dutch government were conditional on the establishment of the back then COHO and the country packages. And one of the items in the country packages, B10, included a review of the possibility for a reduction of government's rental costs. And the objective was to realize a rent reduction of 20% in 5 years, using the government's 2020 budget as a benchmark. During our previous audit, we issued a survey to all landlords to government, and that survey showed it had a response rate of 58%. 11 responded out of the 19. And from those 11, 7 indicated their willingness to renegotiate the lease. And a total of 6 respondents indicated their willingness to relinquish a yearly increase of rent. And back then, we believed that this could have been a quick win for government to save public funds. To date, we've not been privy if government contacted landlords in the meantime. And in our review in 2024, we found that the comprehensive policy on government renting of offices that was supposedly almost finalized in 2022 is to date still pending. In our audit, we note no noteworthy progress, and instead of reducing the rent, which was the aim according to country package B10, the rent costs and budget actually went up. In 2024, we launched our version 2.0 of our online interactive environment, which has proven to be quite popular, even abroad. So this is an interactive platform where the user can click on different signposts to get information on that specific subject. For example, clicking the airport signpost will guide the user to a game pertaining to the public travel audit we did, while clicking on the car signpost will guide you to the road tax world. By successfully completing the tasks in each respective world, the user will receive a badge. And completing all worlds, the user will receive a certificate from the General Audit Chamber in Public Financial Management. In the past, we received an invite to participate in a prestigious project as subject matter experts organized by the International Organization of Supreme Audit Institutions, INTOSAI, which is the globally recognized institute for the development of supreme audit institutions worldwide. They are based in Oslo, in Norway, and I presented our interactive environment there and aided in developing courseware to help global audit institutions' effectiveness and integrity. And we are proud to mention that the organization expressed strong enthusiasm for our idea and indicated that they would use our interactive environment as a basis for their own courseware. Currently, we are visiting schools and organizations to provide this workshop using the environment. And not too long ago, we visited St. Dominic, where about 40 students participated with interest, I can say. And the next workshop is scheduled at LU in March. In April 2024, we launched our WhatsApp channel. And through this platform, followers are the first to receive updates on current audits and other relevant information. And since the launch, the number of followers have increased steadily. By the end of December 2024, the follower count reached 281. And to date, we have over 420 followers, showing the success and added value of the platform. That brings me to the budget realization. Pre-COVID, our budget came up to 2.3 million guilders. And because of the negative impact of the pandemic, we performed an internal analysis of our budget and expenditures, and as a result, our budget went down and totaled 1.3 million, while our actuals in 2024 totaled 1.2 million. Compared to pre-COVID times, this meant a reduction of a little over 40%. This reduction is also the result of renegotiations of existing contracts, like the lease, and optimizing FTEs and just reducing general expenses. Where we could cut, we did, and we still do. We are very proud to state that we had an actual of 99% in personnel costs and 89% in operational expenses. And as far as we can determine, we haven't found an organization with a higher accuracy of actuals, which in our case reached 94%. Now, I know Parliament is very keen on AI nowadays. So is the General Audit Chamber. We would like to inform you and the general public that we recently released our own AI, short for Audit Intelligence. And this AI is a special research assistant for anyone who wants reliable information about St. Maarten's government and public finances. It's basically an AI tool that looks only at official public documents. And it helps users quickly understand any law, budget, annual accounts, audit report, government decision, without needing to read hundreds of pages. And it's different from the regular ChatGPT because this AI only uses verified sources and not general internet guesses. Meaning, what I'm trying to say, it focuses on facts, documents, and exact wording. It can find, summarize, compare, and explain official reports in very clear language. And it also shows where the information comes from, so users can check it itself. And the institutions that we included were the government, Parliament, publications, obviously ourselves, Central Bank, CFT, Ombudsman, Integrity Chamber, SOAB, NRPB, Statistics, IMF, World Bank, you name it. So we encourage everybody to use it. And we're very proud of this, and even though it's still in development, we're always improving. So thank you for your attention, and we await any questions and comments you might have.
Thank you, Mr. De Jong. And indeed, as you mentioned, we have the understanding that the reports by the General Audit Chamber will be handled by Parliament in October of the year of receipt of the annual account. However, due to varying circumstances, we were not able to meet that period last year in 2025 for the 2024 report. However, indeed, we would attempt to see if we can even be earlier than that date once, of course, the report is published. But that's something that we will look at and try to make happen. Members of Parliament, you have the opportunity now for any questions or comments regarding the report and to the members of the General Audit Chamber. To whom can I give the floor at this time? I take a minute or two just to allow the members to not necessarily peruse. You might have done that already, but definitely collect your thoughts, as I would say. And we have MP Lacruz. MP Lacruz, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. And thank you to the General Audit Chamber for the submission of the presentation of the 2024 audit report. Madam Chair Lady, while the findings presented in the report are very valuable, I believe our national oversight responsibility must also focus on ensuring that audit findings translate into measurable collective action. My questions are therefore aimed at strengthening implementation, monitoring, and accountability mechanisms so that these reports lead to tangible improvements within government. So, question one, the implementation of a monitoring system. The report highlights several recurring findings across audits. Could the General Audit Chamber indicate what formal implementation monitoring systems it recommends to ensure that audit recommendations are actually executed, and what specific role Parliament should play in enforcing such monitoring? Question two, mandatory government action plans. Would the General Audit Chamber support the introduction of a structured requirement for ministries to submit corrective action plans, including clear timelines and measurable outcomes following major audit findings? Additionally, how does the Chamber believe Parliament could effectively monitor compliance with those action plans? Question three, does the General Audit Chamber currently measure how many of its recommendations are implemented by government entities? I heard one mention concerning the 2022, specifically the 2022 audit concerning the government buildings and the rental buildings. So highlighting that one. If such monitoring is limited, would the Chamber support Parliament's requesting the development of performance indicators and tracking mechanisms to measure implementation progress across ministries? Question four, strengthening accountability through budget oversight. from the professional experience with strengthening the link between audit compliance and future budget oversight, improve implementation of financial governance reforms. Then a little off track, Madam Chair Lady, I heard that there was mentioned a couple times on behalf of Parliament, so that the Chamber works on behalf of government and Parliament. Going back to a comment that was made by the Prime Minister that we have too much councils of state, or that we're spending too much on councils of state, I would really like to hear what the council themselves think about that comment. And I'd still like to understand exactly why the request from my colleague concerning the audit of Soul Beach was not executed. And why and how, if the Chamber works on behalf of Parliament and Parliament requests something like that, why was it done or why was it denied? Then, yes, Madam Chair Lady, I'll leave it to that and follow up after. Thank you, Madam Chair Lady.
Thank you, MP La Cruz. We have MP De Weaver. MP De Weaver, you have the floor.
Thanks, Madam Chair Lady. Good morning to everyone. Good morning to the General Audit Chamber staff here present. I was just a question on how we're going to do the questions, if we are going to let the MPs ask first and then they answer, or if we're going to compile them all. I just wanted to know how we're going to move forward.
I would suggest that we get all the questions from the MPs and then we allow them to take that batch and provide answers.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, MP De Weaver. I now go over and I give the floor to MP Doran. MP Doran, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. Pleasant good morning to yourself, my colleagues, Mr. Gums and the support staff, the support members of the Audit Chamber, and a special good morning to the people of St. Martin. Madam Chair, I heard during the presentation of Mr. Gums and also Mr. De Jong, the words, oversight on government funding, sound public financial management, sound public funds, especially during tough economic times, use of public funds and accountabilities. Those are reoccurring words. And you go to Article 74 of the Constitution, Article 74.1, er is een algemene rekenkamer, Article 2. De algemene rekenkamer is belast met het onderzoek naar de doelmatig en rechtmatigheid van de ontvangst en uitgaven van het land. So basically, all those words come together in terms of the mission and vision of said Audit Chamber. Madam Chair, I've dealt with the Audit Chamber during my time as minister, and I've always considered this an organization that deals fair and gives objective opinions. But now, in my role as a member of Parliament, and most recently with a motion that was passed here, and my colleague La Cruz touched on it, with the Soul Beach, I started to wonder why I would say, a sudden shift. And I'll go into my point. In the motion that was passed, one of the resolves requests the General Audit Chamber to conduct an independent review of the financial and administrative process related to the support of the Soul Beach event, including the application and approval process, including the legal advice obtained, budgetary allocations, payment mechanisms, and the relevant ministerial or interministerial decisions, all financial and in-kind contributions, documentation, and the adherence to the applicable legal procedures. Request the government and inform them of the findings of the review to develop and implement a supplementary policy to the subsidy ordinance that clearly defines eligibility criteria, including distinctions between for-profit and non-profit organizations, establish consistent procedural and documentation standards for the incidental subsidies, clarify the role and responsibilities of ministries and departments in subsidy approvals and related decisions, promote transparency and reporting obligations for large-scale events receiving public support, request that the findings of the review and the draft be proposed to the supplementary policy and be submitted to Parliament. Through you, Madam Chair, I would like to, my first question is to the Audit Chamber, what do you see wrong, or what don't you agree with in those requests? What do you see that is something that is not your role in that request? That's my first question. Subsequent to that motion being passed, Madam Chair, a letter was sent to the Audit Chamber, signed by the Secretary General and your person, with the following statement in it. Dear Mr. Gums, please find enclosed a copy of a motion adopted by Parliament of St. Martin in a public meeting dated June 23, 2025. The motion resolves to request the General Audit Chamber to conduct an independent review of the financial and administrative process related to the support of the Soul Beach event. In accordance to Article 31 of the National Auditor General Audit Chamber, the Chamber is informed that Parliament, via the adopted motion, is requesting the General Audit Chamber to conduct an inquiry as stated above and described in a related motion. With that being said, Madam Chair, this is the body of Parliament requesting an audit to be done. So it's not because it was a motion that was submitted by a member of Parliament, but a decision by the body of Parliament asking the Audit Chamber to conduct a review and an audit based on Article 31, which is regulated by law. Yet, the response was as follows, and I'm going through it, Madam Chair, because I think it's important that the public understand this situation in its entirety so that it don't be seen as, you know, it's something political, but I think once public funds are being discussed, it is everyone's business. And I try my best to pick out certain parts of the letter that, you know, would be less relevant, but everything seems so important. This is a letter received from the Audit Chamber on July 18, 2025. Parliament may request the Audit Chamber to institute certain inquiries to the extent that the nature of the work permits. Furthermore, it provides, and if the General Audit Chamber complies with such a request, it shall report its findings and opinions resulting from the investigation and report, as well as in the annual report referred to in Article 38. We appreciate Parliament's confidence in the General Audit Chamber as an impartial institution committed to promoting sound financial management and good governance. After a thorough review of the motion, we wish to inform you that the following considerations which have guided our decision. We note that Parliament have several oversight tools to obtain information, including, but not limited to, requesting details from ministers. Articles 68 and 69 of the Parliamentary Rules of Order. So now you have the Audit Chamber telling Parliament how to do their job. Very interesting. Holding hearings and engaging experts through the Central Committee. So now Article 22 of our Rules of Order. And as a last resort, conducting a parliamentary inquiry under Articles 81 and 89 of our Rules of Order. However, we acknowledge that the parliamentary inquiry is a severe measure and should be employed judiciously in consideration of the resources required. Then it goes on, Madam Chair, I'll skip a bit because it's really ridiculous what I'm seeing here, to be quite honest, with all due respect. Given the above, we respectfully propose several alternative avenues for Parliament to consider. So here you have the Parliament of St. Martin adopts a motion, requests the Audit Chamber to execute based on Article 31 that's regulated by law, and the Audit Chamber now is telling Parliament what to do with the following suggestions. Request further information from government based on Articles 68 and 69 of the Rules of Order to formally request detailed explanations from the ministers responsible. Point 2, hold hearings via the Central Committee. Article 22, the committee be hold hearings to consult external experts or request specific documentation to clarify legal and financial issues around the Soul Beach event. Point 3, inquire with other entities involved in supporting the event. Parliament could inquire whether the entities involved in organizing and supporting the event have already gathered information, reports, or key performance indicators, KPIs related to the Soul Beach event. Accessing existing data might help Parliament gain clarity without the need for a new investigation. And lastly, and this one has blew my mind to be honest, engaging an external entity. Another possibility for Parliament is to engage an external entity under Article 22 of the Rules of Order of Parliament, equipped to conduct financial and analytical reviews on a contractual basis and who is not limited to reviewing public funds, unlike the Audit Chamber, which determines its own audit approach and maintains a constitutional independence. Such a bureau can be instructed by Parliament regarding the scope, focus, and specific questions to be answered. This might offer Parliament more control and flexibility surrounding Soul Beach event. So, Madam Chair, here you have the Audit Chamber telling Parliament to get another organization to investigate. So then my question would be then, what role, why do we have an Audit Chamber if the Audit Chamber could tell Parliament, which is the highest body in the country of St. Martin, which requested an audit to be done on public funds, advising us to get a consultant or get somebody else to do it? Am I to understand that through you, Madam Chair, to the Audit Chamber? Am I to understand that as a response? Because that's what I'm reading here. And if I misunderstood it, can I get some clarity on that point, please? Subsequent to that, Madam Chair, on October 27, 2025, a follow-up letter was sent from Parliament, from the MP. This motion did not seek to audit of private funds, which is clear in the motion as well. It explicitly called for inquiry into the use of public funds and the associated public process that enable the support, suggesting that the funds appear to be mixed and is speculative and is not supported by any documentation. Any foundation may receive private support or focus solely on whether public resources were legally and appropriately allocated, processed, and spent. To me, I think that is crystal clear, Madam Chair. Goes on to say, the Audit Chamber has every right to trace, verify how public subsidies and services were deployed, including security accommodations, financial disbursements. Whether private funds were involved does not negate the obligation to account for public funds. If a foundation received both public and private contributions, it is still possible for the Audit Chamber to audit the public portion. In fact, that is precisely where the oversight is most critical. Goes over, Madam Chair, to a response received on the 28th of November from the Audit Chamber, where the Audit Chamber says the following. The requests from Parliament are considered within the framework of Article 31 of the National Ordinance on the Audit Chamber and our policy on parliamentary requests. It also remains the General Audit Chamber independent prerogative to determine whether and if and how a request is included in our audit program. That said, we acknowledge the importance of compliance with the subsidy ordinance and related regulations. The Audit Chamber also appreciates the further clarification provided by the Member of Parliament in relation to the subject motion. In this regard, the board will be deliberating the possibility of inclusion of a thematic audit into public subsidies as part of our 2026 annual plan. So my next question through you, Madam Chair, is the following. Will the Soul Beach process be audited, yes or no, now that the Audit Chamber received extra clarification? The reason why I ask that, Madam Chair, is because the vague language with deliberating the possibility of inclusion of a thematic audit into public subsidies in general, or that particular situation and how the process is supposed to work. Madam Chair, now we see where the Soul Beach organization has gone to Curacao, so St. Martin has lost out, while it was promoted as a homecoming after so many years, and it will remain here for years to come. Soul Beach gone, you don't hear nothing from our government as to why or what or how. We lost again, and now as representatives of the people, a motion was passed in here asking for clarity, also advice on how to better our processes as a country, and also for us to exercise better oversight. And here you have the Audit Chamber, basically, in my humble opinion, and I say this very passionately because I am not here on my own strength. I am here based on the strength of the people, doing dienstweigering or dereliction of duty where official request was passed by the Parliament of St. Martin asking for audit to be done on public funds. I'm not interested in what any other organization sponsored. I'm interested in the public funds part because we all know that there was an issue in terms of how it was processed. It was not budgeted. Up to now, we don't have the budget amendment that was supposed to correct that. So that's another thing that the Audit Chamber should look into. But here we are spinning in circles and basically denying Parliament of its right based on the articles stipulated by law. And I would just like clarity on those points. Thank you very much, and I'll hold back the other questions until I get a response. Thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity.
Thank MP Doran. Members of Parliament, I don't see anyone else. Yes, I do. And that is MP Veronica Janssen-Webster. MP Janssen-Webster, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. Good morning, and good morning to my colleagues, and good morning to the Audit Chamber, and to the people listening. I just had a question regarding the content of the presentation, where I listened to the remarks about timely financial reporting from government, and I understand that the last audit that was done of the financial statements of government was 2022, and that 2023, the audit chamber is busy with that one now. And my question is, which one should they actually be busy with now? If we were in a perfect world and government was up to date, which year? And also, has the audit chamber seen an improvement in the past 5 years? Because we've had presentations here where the Ministry of Finance has come in. The workers of the ministry have actually come in to explain to government how they have been making some changes so that they can have more efficiency. So I wanted to know if you are seeing results of that effort. And I just wanted to mention that I took note again of your presentation about your findings with the VROMI road tax. And I know that the last time you presented that, it's something that left an impression with me. And so I too will follow up from Parliament with VROMI in seeing that in the upcoming budget that the road tax is allocated in the legal fashion. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Janssen-Webster. Any other member of Parliament? Before I proceed, yes, we do have MP Iren. MP Iren, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, SG. Good morning to all my colleagues. Good morning to the General Audit Chamber and the viewing public. Thank you for the presentation and the annual report. Madam Chair, I think I will take maybe a slightly different approach when it comes to the annual reports of the Audit Chamber. First, I'd like to say that I will say this, that I think the Audit Chamber is one of the most innovative high councils and or even government-related entities when it comes to social media, using new technology, et cetera, as we saw with the GPT that he created. I just want to make one point on the GPT. GPT still hallucinate up to 10%. So yes, you could train it on factual-based stuff, but GPT still hallucinates. So I can still ask the question, and if we cannot find the answer within the documents that it's trained on, it can still create an answer that's incorrect. So I want to be very clear on what was said earlier on. Again, also, because I also visited the site a couple of weeks ago, and played the game with the jet and going to different areas. Very nice. I did all of that. So I will say again, in terms of, and also the Facebook, not Facebook, the WhatsApp channel, I think they were one of the first entities to have this. Probably still one of the few. I think the SEAD has one now also. So when it comes to innovation, technology, nice website, being up to date, promotion, I think the Audit Chamber is way ahead of other councils, even regionally, even if compared to Audit Chamber of the Netherlands. I think we are way more advanced. In terms of self-criticism, I think that's where the Audit Chamber lacks. And when especially after my letter that was sent that my MP Doran mentioned regarding the Soul Beach motion and request of myself, as a member of Parliament, I actually had a discussion with a former Dutch member of the Audit Chamber in the Netherlands. I also had a discussion with some just regular auditors, and we evaluated the report of the Audit Chamber, the annual report. And if you look at the annual report of our Audit Chamber, the discussion became, it has a lot of self-praise, right? And if you look at if you compare it to the 2024 report of the Netherlands, it's just more analytical, fact-based, right? And the question that came up to me was, the discussion that came up, and I also had a discussion with a couple other persons, what am I finance to say, from my friend circle, about moral authority. And the audit chamber power is in moral authority, but not enforcement. And when you have a lot of emphasizing of pride or visibility and self-praise, what we risk now is actually weakening the authority of the audit chamber. If you look at, for example, the Dutch report, it's very restrained, analytical, externally focused, right? How this report affects Parliament and the general society. If you read your report and you compare it, and you can run into any GPT, anything you want, you see, and I also compared your report with the Netherlands, I compared it with the report of the Ombudsman and other entities, right? And you'll see in terms of self-praise, pride, etc., we promote better social media, we do this, we do that. But in terms of the effects of our reports, because there's no accountability in terms of, we had a report out on the Christmas voucher a couple of years ago. What happened since then, all right? So what happens now, you start to lose the credibility to the public because, yes, we are growing in social media accounts, 400 something users. But what does that actually have, what impact does that have on the society? Yes, we have a broader outreach, we are doing that, but what impact does our reports actually have? And I think the audit chamber really has to do some more self-reflection. Okay, so some of the highlights: social media reach, influencers, engagement. Those are all things. Even in your presentation today, I made sure to took a note of all those things. Even in your presentation today, those are all the highlights, right? How good or how well we are reaching the public. But there was almost no critical awareness of yourself. And if you read the reports of any other audit chamber, right, you see that. We were not able to do this. We had this report come out, but we realized the government did not follow up our impact. Maybe we have to reevaluate certain things. You do not see that in your report. MP Lacruz mentioned a monitoring system. That's what I want to see, right? Yes, we have reached 500 users, but are they aware that we did this report? And what has the follow-up been? Because we know that the audit chamber, let's say, doesn't have teeth. It can't, let's say, it can't punish Parliament, it can't punish government. But you can bring continuous awareness. Otherwise, what is the point of the first report? Let's say go back to the Christmas vouchers, right? The report came out in 2022. The government, if we had a meeting here, and that's the other thing too, I want to make clear and ask a question. Why are we having closed-door meetings with the audit chamber? I've looked everywhere. I don't see any rules. I don't see any. It's not in the law, right? In the Netherlands, closed-door meetings with the audit chamber is an exception, not a rule. Every meeting is public. So I'm almost not even inclined to attend any more meetings with the audit chamber if they're closed door. And that's my person. If it's not going to be a public CC, I'm inclined not to attend anymore. Because why are we doing things differently than if we're having accountability discussions, the public should be aware. These discussions these are not private discussions. We're not talking about individuals in government in person cases. In your own presentation, you mentioned accountability to public funds. So my position is going to be, as of today, I would not be attending unless it's a very, very, like I said, an exception to some information that maybe has national interest or risk. Outside of that, I would not be attending any more meetings for the audit chamber that are closed door. Because I've checked everywhere else, no one else does it. And we tend to, in St. Martin, many times compare ourselves to the Netherlands and follow here. Okay, so if you're going to do that, then let's do that then. If you want to compare ourselves to other chambers, let us follow the standard of other chambers. Exception, not the rule. Monitoring, yes. For example, and it was stressed at least 15 times in this presentation today between the two first presenters, the independence of the audit chamber. And part of that independence comes from not seeming political, right? And my question then would be, in terms of governance of the audit chamber, what is then, because I've also looked at the COA, the Council of Advice in the Netherlands, et cetera, audit chamber in the Netherlands. And yes, we have staff, and the staff, I believe, should have self-expression, freedom, et cetera. But is it also the opinion of the audit chamber that staff also should not have any sort of political advocacy? Because if I see persons that work for our chamber and I see certain comments, certain places, right, then I have to tend to believe that it then affects the so-called perception of independence of the audit chamber. So is the audit chamber of that same opinion? That there should be, yes, staff should have freedom of expression, accountability, but they should also have a sort of a governing policy within the audit chamber of, if you post this, it looks like political advocacy. If you say this, it seems that you are weakening now the credibility of our reports. It can have an effect on the perception of how the citizens of St. Martin view our report. Again, because there should be a level of true independence, right, when it comes to audit chamber. And that goes down not just to reports, but even down to staff. And again, I verified this with the same individuals that I was talking to in the Netherlands, and they said that's a fact, right? That there is accountability outside of just how we work in the office, but how we operate outside of the office. And again, because that affects the moral authority of the audit chamber. The monitoring. And I mentioned the political part just now because I've always had a lot of respect for the audit chamber. I've praised them a lot in private and in meetings as a council of ministers, with other high councils taking the audit chamber as an example of how we could push forward. When it came to the Christmas vouchers, it was the first time I felt like the audit chamber, I don't want to say political, it was a very weird situation. How this came about? The government gives vouchers every year to staff. We did the send out quotations, et cetera, et cetera. I was informed that it says, hey, we are also civil servants. We didn't get any Christmas vouchers, something along lines. Okay. I told my staff, hey, I don't think so. We don't give vouchers to Ombudsman and other places. Said, no. I think I said, I'm not too sure, so I could be wrong with this. I'm not sure if a second email was sent. I just know I was advised, hey, let's not make this an issue. Let's just give the vouchers.
MP Iran, if I could ask you to speak up a little,
sorry.
please, yeah, and a little
Let's say
clearer
I
in
said.
the- Thank you.
I said, at that time we said, okay, I'll repeat. The Christmas vouchers came up. The audit chamber said, hey, we are also civil servants. We should be getting Christmas vouchers also, something along those lines. I could get an email to verify, something along those lines, paraphrasing. I said, I don't think so. We don't normally do this. We don't send ombudsman other places. I don't want to do that. I don't want to create this habit of sending vouchers outside of civil servants. I don't know if it was my staff or a second email came in from the audit chamber, but I was informed, hey, let's not make this an issue. Let's give the vouchers. Good. We give the vouchers. I think a week later, the vouchers come back, booked in to government, right? Oh, we can't accept these vouchers because we are not too sure what policy was implemented to be able to give them out. But I didn't ask. I didn't give them in the first place. It was requested by the audit chamber. So, if it and every single person that worked with me felt like that was a setup or entrapment. every single person. Because if you wanted to know the policy, then you ask about the policy. We never sent the vouchers to our chamber, all right? It was requested of us. So I want to understand the audit chamber's process in that particular situation, right? We didn't say we want to get the vouchers. It was requested, we can verify the emails. We want to have vouchers because we are civil servants, right? Then we send the vouchers, and it wasn't even sent back in the manner that we sent them in, right? It booked back into Parliament to say, with a letter saying, oh, we don't know about this, we don't know what policy was used, et cetera, et cetera. Good. There's no other way for me to look at that, right, without proper context. Okay, there was no other email attached to that. And then we had to go and show that we did the decrees, whatever. And out of that was born this report. So, but then what? Because we had a follow-up meeting since then in one of the closed-door sessions where I also questioned about the recent, and I said, listen, yes, the report came out in 2022 or 2023 regarding the Christmas vouchers then. What since then? Has the government made improvements? Did our chamber request vouchers again the 2023, 2024, 2025, right? Or was that a one-time request? How is the audit chamber testing to see now my report that I brought out at that point in time got better? Is the government following up? And even more so, the question was asked by myself. So the mini audit is done. So it was just a one-time mini audit in that one particular time. Because then it looks political. Because if it's not political, you want to test your own work. And that's like the reports of, and that's the comments I got also from other auditors, that if you're going to do a mini audit, or you're going to do an audit, where is the follow-up, where's the continuous follow-up? How are you testing your own work? How are you being critical of your own work? Because since then, the voucher system has even changed. And then I can go back to even another report that our chamber brought up, how are your tax dollars being spent? That's a good question, because the new voucher system was not a system where we now go and get quotations and so forth. No, it was, we're going to put $250 on every civil servant's account, which is fine, but tax-free. So how does that work then? And I asked a question already because the people that tell them who left, they're saying, hey, we want to also get our lump sum payments tax-free, right? But we can't. And I want everybody to get the tax-free. But what I don't want is that it becomes favoritism and saying, hey, we're going to do for these individuals, but not these individuals. The justice officers who also get the lump sum payments, they're being taxed at 47.50%, the highest tax you could get. So why is it then okay, right, for these individuals to do at 250 and they found a solution, right, but not for everybody else? And that question was posed already, right? So my question again is, what is the views then to the audit chamber on this? Because this is part of your own reports. You brought attention to the public on this, and that's why the person told me, and I was like, oh, this is a strong word, the moral authority of the audit chamber, right? Because once you don't, and the person said, once you don't execute on these follow-ups, once you are not self-critical, you lose a moral authority, not just in the citizens, but parliament and government. Because yes, we don't have the teeth by law, but your teeth is actually following up and showing, hey, we can continue to shed light on this topic until it's resolved and fixed by government. That's your moral authority. That's how you build your teeth and get stronger, etc. And actually, that's how I want us to continue to build on the audit chamber. Yes, we've done well in marketing, well in growing, well in public outreach, but how well are we translating all of this into actual impact? How is society benefiting from all these reports? Because it's a little tiring, right, in terms of we have all these reports, and the public has to deal with a lot of information already. You're fighting, we are all fighting for attention, right? When your report comes out, it's gone in the next hour, right? Because we are fighting against our daily lives, the government information, and don't even talk about the U.S. politics, right? what we want now to see is how are we going to be more impactful. Even the reports from when I was there. I said, I'm not saying, I want us to be critical of when I was there too. So I have no problem with the voucher system. We know exactly how we did it. What I have a problem with is, are we going to be critical enough to follow up and say, hey, can we see any improvements? The government improved 10%, 20%, 30%. Every year we should be able to evaluate on the improvements and say, hey, we're only going to do this for 5 years. We have the other report regarding the renting government, right? We have one from Audit Chamber. We have one internally from government. We have one from Integrity Chamber, right? There's at least 3, maybe 4 entities by now that did a very similar report, an investigation on the renting government. And now what? It doesn't change in the budget. We don't have any follow-up since then, right? There's no report saying the Audit Chamber has sent follow-ups to the government, requesting information so that we can verify any progress. What happened since that report? I almost don't see the impact in terms of. Another question I have. How does Audit Chamber, or who decides on what mini audit to do? I saw one in the papers. I also went on the website in terms of I think air quality. Thought was a great topic. But we also had a very expensive report done by NRPB on the air quality of the dump in other areas of St. Martin. I am not sure the Audit Chamber had that similar budget to that extent to have an air quality assessment done on their level, on the World Bank level. So why no? 'Cause at that time when we did that, there was concerns about cancer, all the fires in the dump, etc. We don't have the fires in the dump anymore. So what triggered that specific report? So who determines the direction or what type of mini audit to do? Is it a single staff member? Is the board collective saying, hey, these are the areas for 2026 that we think the macro areas of St. Martin, right, that we think are impacting society? And within those macro areas, we want to touch on these micro areas. In the micro areas, we're going to do mini audits because we don't have the resources to do a full audit. How are you determining a mini audit? Because I went on the website and I tried to gauge, okay, where is mini audits coming from? Like, it's kind of all over the place, right? And what is the end goal of all these mini audits? What do we want to do with all these mini audits? Are they going to lead up to a big audit eventually? Is it a sample testing of, hey, we're going to do this, we're going to see the reaction from government, we're going to see the reaction from society, and based on those reactions, we're going to do a deeper dive into these specific areas? What is the goal of these mini audits? It can't be, again, just self-praise of we did this audit and we think it's good. So I have a couple more questions, but I'll wait because I think they will tie into the answers that I get from here. But again, my conclusion for now will be, I think the Audit Chamber has done a great job in terms of being an outlier when it comes to high councils, being an outlier by trying to not be boring. If you look at any other Audit Chamber, it's just kind of boring. This is data, and we just take this information, we give to government. No, I think you guys are pushing the boundaries of, hey, we want to get out there. What I miss in the reports, and again, you could compare this report to the ones in the Netherlands, regionally, and also your colleague members. I think it has a lot more praise than self-criticism. And I would like between the Audit Chamber and Parliament for us to be able to hold government accountable so that we could, in the end, have high impact on the society. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP Irian. The next MP to speak is MP Roosburg. MP Roosburg, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair Lady. Blessed afternoon to the Audit Chamber. Blessed afternoon to my honorable colleagues and to the people of St. Martin listening online. I have a few questions in regards to what was presented here today, and also to get more clarity in regards to the follow-up work. First of all, in the presentation, there were 3 key pointers mentioned, which shows the role of the audit chamber. One of those pointers was integrity as well. And I understood through you, Madam Chair, that it was mentioned that seeing we have an integrity chamber, that is, how to put it, not more the focus point, if I understood correctly. So what I would like to know, to avoid double work taking place, in what way is the audit chamber, maybe together with the integrity chamber, making sure that not unnecessary double work is taking place by both chambers, because that would be unfortunate, and that ties back into having several high councils with maybe similar tasks. So is the audit chamber fully not focusing on integrity anymore, or are there discussions taking place, for example, with the integrity chamber? Okay, we have this matter that we're looking into. Will you all take this up, or should we take it up to avoid similar and/or double reports to take place? That's one question. Second question is, just for clarity's sake and for my understanding, I believe, or I assume, that every year you would have a plan in, okay, this is the planning for 2026, for example. And I myself studied the website as well, and I'm seeing several audits taking place and our mini audits taking place. So for 2026, what is currently on the agenda? I don't know if it's maybe a weird question to ask, but I'm not familiar with the financial world as such, or maybe it's not something that will be publicly mentioned, what will be audited, but is there clarity in regards to what will be audited, and if Parliament can get maybe a list of topics that will be audited, because it ties back into looking at these several reports and then seeing that, for example, we have the motor vehicle tax 2022-2024. We're currently in 2026. I also saw on the social media channel, which I follow as well, that, hey, know where your tax money is going to, and that 50% is not being used how it should be used. But has it been looked into currently what the current amount is? And then the second question, because it was very clear by the legal, which mentioned through you, Madam Chair, yes, the legal route needs to be followed. Is it then being said indirectly, if the upcoming budget, that's not the case, that the budget should not be approved? I don't want to put no words in nobody's mouth, but I just would like to get some clarity in that regard. Seeing that that's what I read out of it, but yes, I don't want to read something that's not being said. So is that what is being meant by that remark that was made? And then for me, it's more to know, yes, you have the Constitution. The Constitution makes it clear what the role is, but it basically ties back in also what my colleague MP Irian mentioned. It's good to see, and especially for someone who does not have a financial background, to see all those reports. But for me, it would be nice to see, okay, in 2020 we were here, 2024 we are here currently, and we are seeing improvement. And maybe that's somewhere to be seen, but for me it's not clear if that follow-up is there. So I would like to know what the Audit Chamber's plan is in regards to that, or if I've missed it, to point it out where I've missed it, because I don't mind to be corrected if it is there. Other than that, what I would like to get some clarity in is when those reports are being presented, and we're now in Parliament discussing the annual report, but it's in regards to the spending, right, or misspending. How does it go when the Audit Chamber provides such a report? I assume government is being presented with the same report. And then is there a follow-up, or has there been a follow-up in the past years in regards to, okay, this is the report that has been presented. In a few months, we will follow up and see what the result is of what was presented, and we can see that there was any improvement, or does your role go, doesn't your role go so far? Is there a limitation to that? Because I can understand you provide advice, you point out what is wrong, and does it then stop there, or should it stop there? Because the law, in my opinion, is not really clear in that. It mentions, yes, there is a audit chamber and what the role is, but it's not clear in regards to follow up. I know in regards to sanctions, in that sense, that I cannot see that in the law, but where does your role stop in accordance to the audit chamber? I would like to get some more clarity on that, so that also how I then read those reports is that the advices or the recommendations are being made, and then it's Parliament's job to follow up in regards to, okay, this is what has been brought forward, and now based on those reports, we believe that this and that should happen. Is that the position of the audit chamber, or does the audit chamber believe, through you, Madam Chair, that they can make more use of their current role and that is not being utilized at its full potential? Those are my questions for now. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Roseburg. I have MP De Wever. MP De Wever, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair Lady. I just wanted to say for the record that the Committee of Country Expenditures has 6 members on it, and I hope that after today's meeting, based on all the questions, that we get more in the next parliamentary term, because then in the Committee of Country Expenditures is where we go piece by piece into all of these reports. So I'm just sending a message directly to my colleague MPs. Chair Lady, thank you.
Thank you, MP De Wever. The next MP to speak is MP Iren. MP Iren, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. That was a timely message because, like I indicated before, I would not be attending unless it's public. And so that's also a reason why I left the committee, because I thought my position is it should be public, like every other one. So, and if the chair gets it to be public, I'll be for sure back in the committee. Madam Chair, regarding the annual statements of government, has the audit chamber gotten, what is the last annual statement of the government the audit chamber got? And has the financial statements, and has the government indicated when they will send be up to date with the financial statements? In addition to that, what are the strongest tools the audit chamber has in its capacity to use? What are they named? Where can I find them in law? So, and not that I'm not aware of it, I want the public to also be aware of these tools. So what are the strongest tools that the audit chamber has, and when and how can they be used? And why would they be used in that sense? Regarding the auditing of the financial statements of government, in a case of non-budgeted items, so the government, and I'm happy in the last letter the audit chamber sent, the chair mentioned that they potentially for 2026, the inclusion of subsidies will be in there. I'm hoping that that answer has now been, I know it was a potential, but I'm hoping that now we are already in 2026, that a decision has been made on if it will or will not be. So my question is, will it be or will it not be? And in terms of auditing, how does the audit chamber audit an item or look at an item? So the spending of government that was never budgeted. So it spent 200,000 guilders on subsidies, 400,000 guilders on projects. How does the audit chamber view these things in terms of having to give their opinion on the audit? And including Dutch funds, so TERIA funds, Dutch subsidies, money through NRPB, World Bank. So funds that government spends, but it's not budgeted. So is that public funds? Would you still consider public funds since it was not budgeted? Or the government could just spend money that it has, just cash on bank, that's not budgeted? Thank you.
Thank you, MP Iran. From my view, I take note that there are no other MPs requesting the floor at this time. I look to the General Audit Chamber. Of course, you've had many questions. Do you need a few minutes to caucus about the responding to these questions? Then we'll do that. So I'll give you 4 minutes now just to caucus about the continuation with the answers. This meeting is adjourned until 12:35. Meeting adjourned. Members of Parliament, ladies and gentlemen, I have just reopened the meeting after a brief adjournment. We are discussing the General Audit Chamber's Annual Report 2024. The report was presented by the chair and members of the General Audit Chamber, followed by questions by members of Parliament. The General Audit Chamber is prepared to go into responding to these questions and queries by members of Parliament. So I now give the floor to the chairperson, Mr. Gomes of the General Audit Chamber, who would then direct the responses to the questions by members of Parliament. Mr. Gomes, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On behalf of the General Audit Chamber, we'd like to say to the members, although we are here debating, talking about the annual report 2024, we know that some of your comments, questions pertaining to other items outside of 2024. However, we will do our utmost best to try to answer your questions as much as possible. And we do thank you for your comments and questions. The manner in which we will do the questions is we will go through based on each MP's questions. We will try to list them as best as we can and make the response to those that we get. And they will be deliberated between Mr. De Jong and myself. And Mr. De Jong will start with the first questions that was posed by MP La Cruz.
Thank you, Chair Lady. Thank you, Chairman. It's good to know that there's a lot of interest, at least in the work of the Audit Chamber, and I generally appreciate the answers and comments. Just to go through the questions, and if I miss one, my apologies, then we'll do it after the first round, I guess. MP La Cruz, you asked you said that the audit findings should lead to action, and what monitoring systems do we have? And I think with that question alone, it ties back to several other questions and comments that were posed just now. Also on one of the weaknesses of an audit chamber, because you want to follow up on the recommendations made in reports. So short answer, yeah, we agree. And to strengthen the follow-up, we introduced in 2025 a tool called a progress meter, which we also emulated from our colleagues in the Netherlands. And this tool tracks whether recommendations are implemented, are partially implemented, and are not implemented. And the first draft letters are ready to go. And actually, we were planning to send one to Parliament this morning. So probably later today, we'll still send it out. It should provide Parliament with a clear periodic overview of the progress after reports are issued. And just to clarify that this progress meter does not replace any ministerial responsibility. It's mainly to see how far ministers or auditees are with implementing recommendation. And basically, it should support your oversight by making follow-up more transparent and structured. Do we support mandatory action plans after major findings? Yes. We support a structured requirement for ministries to submit formal action plans, which also includes timelines and responsible officials following major audit findings. And we do believe that that tool improves accountability and should improve accountability and measurability as well. And I think the road tax is a good example of that as well. Just to go into that topic, I'm going a bit off with the question lining, but we had discussions with the Minister of Romy in 2025 and 2026, even though we're discussing 2024 annual report, in where eventually the Minister submitted a roadmap on the idea of becoming compliant when it comes to the road tax. And we are carefully monitoring that roadmap to make sure that all the deadlines are adhered to. Then the next question was, how can Parliament effectively monitor the compliance? I guess the project, I'm very much looking forward to this new tool, the progress meter. And in the meantime, we still have the reviews that we did in the past to see what was actually done in the past with the recommendations. And I think by linking the recommendation to, for example, budget debates or also requesting updates from ministers, you have a bunch of oversight tools that hopefully helps you in your role to hold the minister accountable. Would stronger budget oversight improve reforms? We believe so. Budget oversight, I believe, is one of Parliament's strongest instruments to enforce implementation of reforms. And then you had a question that the PM said that there are too many councils of state. There's three. There's the Ombudsman, the General Audit Chamber, and the Council of Advice. And then there's a couple of advisory councils like the SER and the Integrity Chamber. We don't take any positions on political or governance design choices. Our role is to audit compliance, effectiveness, and efficiency of how public funds are used within the existing structures based on our Constitution. Now, the Soul Beach audit, that's a very interesting question. And you see all the eyes on me, which is fine. I'm going to leave that for my chairman to answer. So with that, I'll give the word back to the chairman.
Thank you, Mr. De Jong, thus far. And Mr. Gums, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In regards to the questions, and to continue on the request, looking at the question from MP Duran that you get, and when we talk about what, the question is, what do you not agree with that is not in our request? This is where we talk about the request that came from Parliament on the Soul Beach that you get. As the General Audit Chamber, we do respect Parliament's requests. Parliament is one of our partners. In this, especially, you are the ones that we facilitate most of our reports to, so we do respect your requests. Our concern was not with the intent, but with the practical and legal feasibility of conducting audit within our mandate, given the lack of separation between public and private funds at the time that we look at it. As mentioned in our letter that you see, that we sent in November, stating that we would consider it as part of our audit plan for 2026. And we just like to mention that under no circumstances, as the audit chamber, we will not audit, sorry.
Not number two.
No, so,
Only number one.
yeah, so under the circumstances, the audit chamber will not audit the Soul Beach process directly, but we'll audit the process of how the funds were taken. So we know that it is looked at in what we are considering. It's like an incidental subsidy that was given to these individuals. So that is the process and how we're going to look at. We do not look at the individual item, we look at the entire process. So if it falls, we think it falls under incidental subsidies, that is what we're going to be looking at as part of our plan 2026. And hopefully that would be able to cover what you're looking for, the request that we get from Parliament in that regard, that you would get. So those was my comments on the issue with the Soul Beach thing. And I think those was the questions that I get from MP Duran that we got. So then I turn the floor back to Keith to continue with some of the other questions.
And maybe from the Secretariat on the ambtelijk niveau, I guess. When we received the letter, I think it was in July, we responded, but maybe there was a bit of a miscommunication on what the goal exactly was. And just like my chairman just explained, our concern was not necessarily with the intent, but with the practical and legal feasibility of conducting the audit within our mandate, given the private and public funds being mixed. Then we received a follow-up letter, and the board deliberated based on that follow-up letter and said, okay, the law is clear that the government or the Parliament can request the General Audit Chamber. There is a policy since, I think, 2022 in place on how to request. It's not necessarily via a motion. A motion is a good start. So we took that, if the board took that into consideration, but also valued the cooperation and the materiality behind this whole subject. That's why the deliberation was made. And not too long ago, even though our annual plan is not public, it's confidential, the board did decide to add another audit to the annual plan, which is an audit on the incidental subsidies. Now, I won't go into the details of the audit because my national ordinance does not allow me to do that. But based on the deliberations and based on the impact, obviously also in the political landscape, that decision was made. Just to continue with MP Janssen-Webster's questions on the timely financial reporting, which year should be audited now, and is there any improvement that we've seen lately? Under the previous finance minister, there was a huge cleanup done, and we were timely. Unfortunately, now our financial statements are basically in 2022 was the last audited financial statement. What does that mean? 2023 should have been done on September 1st, 2024. We received the financial statement, I think it was in July 2025, if I'm not mistaken, or 2024. Anyways, we received the financial statement already, but that does not mean that we are allowed to start our audit. Based on the law, first, SWAB, the internal auditor, needs to complete their report. It's still with them. So only after they finalize their report, we will receive that report, and then within 6 weeks, we are legally obligated to provide you with our report on that financial statement, which facilitates you in your decision in granting or not discharge to a minister. That, then there's one more legal term that is important to mention. Within 1 month after we submit our report to Parliament, the government is supposed to provide you with a national ordinance, a draft national ordinance on establishing the financial statement. Just to keep that in mind. And when you agree to that national ordinance, if approved, then you also give discharge to the Council of the Ministers. So we are at, the last one was 2022. And have we seen improvements? You know, it's unfair to say that we haven't seen improvements because we did, but the improvements are not structural, and unfortunately they're small. And I know that with their team that they have at finance and in government in general, they are trying, but it's not easy. And I think that's something to keep in mind as well. Finance is undercapacitated, sometimes I guess overwhelmed, I guess. And nonetheless, there are the legal requirements, and we should aim for improvement. The update on the road tax situation, you asked about that as well. Well, like I just mentioned, in 2020, and I'm happy to hear also that there are members here that follow our WhatsApp. I'm happy to mention that we had regular talks with the Minister of Romy, also with the Minister of Finance on this topic, and a roadmap has been drafted in order to become compliant. I'm not going to sit here and say whether I think it's a good idea or not, because that's not my decision. I only audit the legal compliance with the law. And then MP Irian, regarding your first comment on a GPT that can create false answers, I think that's a very good comment, and I'll definitely take that with me. And we're still obviously developing the tool more and more. I think so far we had some very good feedback on it, and I appreciate your feedback as well, so we're going to look at that as well. I also agree that technology, like AI, you need to be very careful with it, because in the end, human judgment should prevail. Then the self-criticism and the tone of annual reports. I mean, we are proud of our little institution, don't get me wrong, but that doesn't mean that I don't take your point very seriously. We report the achievements. We recognize also the importance of critical self-reflection. And I think, like I said, the progress tool is a result of that, because I also agree that one of the weaknesses, and that's something that the board knows as well, is the follow-up of recommendations. We also take that into consideration nowadays when we draft our recommendations, because you don't want to make very broad statements or recommendations that are not able to, be adhered to. Fix the tax system. Yeah, you can't say that, because. But there are certain little things that you could focus on, and we try in our recommendations to focus on those things. The closed door meetings. You want to do this one? You want me to do that one? I don't think we've ever had any objections to open meetings. So we don't mind having open meetings. However, for matters involving confidentiality, I mean, we could recommend closed door sessions, but that decision will always rest with Parliament, and we will always try to facilitate as good as possible. So I hope to see you more often then. Then the independence and political neutrality of staff. I take that also very serious. First and foremost, we have an internal policy on political neutrality. Our staff is aware of that and are required to comply to the letter. We had a staff member before in the very distant past, far past, and that resulted in termination of the contract. If matters like this are noticed, which we tend to notice, then that person will be called into the office. We follow a similar HR cycle as government. So either during the planning interview, the midterm, or the evaluation that would be brought up, and the person would be notified accordingly. Okay. The Christmas vouchers, and you mentioned that it felt odd and weird. How did this thing came to be? I don't want to go into the whole story behind it, but we received a message that there were Christmas vouchers for pickup. I think back then it was P&O who sent us the message. And they told us, for more information, you need to ask finance, which we did. And yes, there are Christmas vouchers available for pickup if you guys would like them. So, okay, we went for pickup, and we noticed that the amount exceeded 100 guilders. In accordance with Article 59 of the Landsverordening Materieel Ambtenarenrecht, you're not allowed to take gifts over 100 guilders. But what is a gift? So we went to the Integrity Chamber and we asked them, is this considered a gift? And they said, no, it's not a gift. Okay. But nonetheless, our board declined the voucher also because of the fact, like you said, and you rightfully say that, we are not civil servants. So the board came up with something for the staff of the Audit Chamber in line with the LMA, and we do call it a gift. And but then how does that relate back to the audit? The audit focused on the budget classification and also the procurement compliance. We found in our audit, and I don't have it at the top of my head, but we found in the audit that budget posts, like what was it, for the cemetery or something, was used to pay for the Christmas vouchers. Now, we don't necessarily say that you shouldn't give out Christmas vouchers. And if other organizations like an Integrity Chamber says, you know, it's not a gift and you're allowed to give it out, fine. But at least then use the proper budget post for it. And that's what we emphasized in that audit. Another thing that we emphasized was follow the procurement rules. If you set requirements for the procurement and later you're going to deviate from them because it's deemed, and I have it on email, that the recipient of a voucher, they shop more commonly in a different supermarket, while another vendor looks more cost efficient. Yeah, then obviously we're going to note that in the report, like, okay, we highlight that there's a difference and we can't explain why. Then your question was, how do you select audit topics and why the air quality audit? Also a very good question. Our 2025 annual plan focused on climate-related themes. And again, we're talking 2024 here, but I guess in October we'll talk 2025 on the climate. We did a climate scanner in the beginning of 2025, in where we audited the governance and the policies and the budget government allocated towards climate change and mitigating climate change. Before we do an audit, we have a preliminary investigation, is what we called it, and we noted the NRPB findings. And also one of the reasons why we did that audit, because there was a procurement, not done, but attempted, on getting air measure systems, which never went through. And then we talked to health professionals, pediatricians, and we noted the respiratory issues on the island. So that combined, so you have the annual plan theme, you have the NRPB findings or the procurement, and you have the medical professionals who raised the issue of the respiratory issues, led to the decision to carry out a mini audit on the current state of the process of how to monitor air and the air quality. Then MP Roseberg, you ask about the avoiding duplication with the integrity chamber. Yeah, that's also a very good question and a very good comment. We do coordinate. We had a meeting with the integrity chamber actually not too long ago. And we don't really do integrity audits anymore for that reason, because there is an integrity chamber. They have a budget. It doesn't really make sense. I would rather allocate the budget towards another audit than an integrity audit, because there is an institution to do that. Yeah, I'll leave that for another time. So yeah, it's also about how to spend public funds efficiently. Then the 2026 annual plan. Although the annual plan is confidential, I am allowed to share the theme. Like last year, it was climate change. This year, the theme is leave no one behind. And you'll see that there's a common demeanor here, which is the SDGs. Government has the SDGs flags and everything, and we feel, okay, this is important and we should audit that as well. So in that framework, we the board decided on numerous audits to be carried out this year based on that framework, which is leave no one behind. Do you mean that the budget should not be approved based on the fact that there's non-compliance with the, I don't know how the name of that ordinance, but with the road fund ordinance? I don't think we are allowed to say anything on that, because we just report on the compliance. But if you're not compliant, I believe the minister should explain why there's no compliance, but eventually Parliament decides on the approval. I mean, you gotta also have to look at the bigger picture. Are you gonna stop a whole process because of the fact that there's no road fund since the beginning of ages? And what happens after a report is issued? Well, we conduct reviews, we meet with the ministers, and we monitor progress, obviously now with the progress meter involved as well. I just want to mention as well that hopefully with those periodic reviews that you can hold a minister accountable with an extra tool. Obviously, accountability rests eventually with Parliament, and our reports are tools to support you in that role. MP Arian Part 2, if I may call it that. What was the last financial statement received? That was 2023, and currently we're waiting to do the audit on 2023. When will the government be up to date? I have no clue. It depends on the financial administration. At minimum, we do believe that 2023 should be finalized without further delay. At minimum. What are the strongest tools of the audit chamber and how to use them? Well, I think it comes back to the core elements of an audit chamber, which is independence, transparency, accountability, access to information, public reporting. Then there's a next tool, which is called the objection procedure, which was actually used. We have a policy on the objection procedure because there's a whole process involved. And we, for the first time, started that process with the road tax non-compliance issue. And that led eventually to that roadmap, which is also part of the policy that the minister has to draft and follow up. Because there was a roadmap, the board decided we're going to suspend this objection. But if an objection would continue, that would mean we would inform our colleagues within the kingdom. And then we would strongly advise you to not grant discharge to the minister. And there's some follow-up steps leading to an advice to a motion of disapproval, an advice. But in this sense, the minister did comply, and we are seeing progress in the compliance, at least in the compliance issues when it comes to the road tax. Then the unbudgeted spending, and how do we view this? This comes back in our audit. This is also very serious, and this comes back in our audit on the financial statements every single time we audit it. We then, unfortunately, there are so many non-compliance issues that we just list the top 5 of compliance issues, and we also have a top 5 of shortcomings. So there's 2 different categories. The top 5 is usually the same, but it includes spending without proper budget authorization. And obviously those reports are public, and we send them to Parliament as well. I hope I addressed all the questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. De Jong and Mr. Gums, for your responses. I don't see any other member yet. I do see several members, but before we go over to the members asking whatever follow-up questions they might have, I'm going to adjourn for just 4 minutes, and then I will ask MP De Wever to take over the chair for me of this meeting. So we'll adjourn to have that done. Meeting adjourned for 4 minutes.
welcome back to this committee meeting, Central Committee meeting. And I see that the first MP that has additional questions is MP Veronica Janssen. You have the floor. I got you.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. It's not an additional question, it's just a remark regarding the monitoring of air quality. I just wanted to mention that the census also asked questions about that, about respiratory diseases. So I think that you will be able to find information there as well for that project. And then also with the SDGs, for your 2026 theme of Leave No One Behind, just to remind you to reference the Census 2022 as well. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Janssen Webster. MP Duran, you are up next. I got you.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. I just wanted to thank the Audit Chamber for the responses provided thus far, and just highlight or bring some clarity. Not, executing the motion per se, but it's executing the content of it, and the letter in the motion per se, but it's executing the content of it, and the letter of the Chair of Parliament and the Secretary General is said request. So I just want to make that clear, so it don't be any confusion for those that are listening in terms of us not following the proper procedure, because the proper procedure was followed based on the highlighting of Article 31. And I must say that I'm glad to know that there was a change of heart in terms of the direction and the decision to actually conduct the audit into the spending in the process from Soul Beach 2025, because when I go to the letter on November 28th, it states the following: the General Audit Chamber also appreciates the further clarification provided by the Member of Parliament in relation to the subject motion 15. In this regard, the board will deliberate the possibility of inclusion of a thematic audit into public subsidies as a part of 2026. So it didn't specifically say it would conduct the audit for the Soul Beach, which was requested in reference in the motion. It said into subsidies. So I'm glad that today, February 10, 2026, the people of Parliament, by extension, the people of St. Martin, was able to get clarity that this audit will take place based on the motion and the specific details in it. So that's all for now, Madam Chair, and I once again thank you for the report and appreciate the time here.
Thank you, MP Duran. MP Irian, you have the floor.
Who's this? Thank you, Chair. Thank you to the Audit Chamber, Mr. De Jong and Mr. the Chair, and De Jong and Mr. Alphonse Gomes, regarding the answers. I appreciate how fast we were able to respond and the answers given, and in particular also the answer to bring clarity to the questions posed by MP Duran. But I also would like to make it clear on the Christmas voucher part, and also answer my questions, and I look forward to future reports. But in regards to the Christmas voucher, because it was said that that Pay had contacted, but just to be very clear, in the letter from the Audit Chamber itself, it states that on December 22nd, 2022, the General Audit Chamber was made aware of correspondence dated December 8th from the Prime Minister relating to the appreciation of civil servants. So it was not that Pay contacted. So just for the record, I want to be clear that, and it states here, after inquiry by the Audit Chamber. So the Audit Chambers who inquired if it was made available to the Audit Chamber. So just to be clear on that, because some staff also contacted me saying, no, that's not how it went, and we don't want to get blamed for this. And I had to go back and search for the letter. So again, and that's why it felt, not only by me, it felt like that by the staff, like, hey, the Audit Chamber is inquiring, we didn't offer, right? We didn't offer the Audit Chamber vouchers. It was inquired about the vouchers. So you could see how the staff view this process of, we didn't offer you, you inquired, asking for these things, and after the fact, right, it's like, oh, we don't want them, but we never offered in the first place, and that's how it came off. And again, these are the situations I believe bring up the topic of more authority of, and it's hard for me then to explain to my staff, because, just really St. Martin in English, it was like, yeah, but that's your boys, right? Not that we're friends, but because of how well and high I speak of Audit Chamber all the time, right? So it looks like, oh, you always saying this, but look how they do in this process. So I just want to make that clear. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Irian. I see that MP Roseberg would like a word. You have the floor.
Thank you, Chair Lady. First of all, the follow-up question that I had in regards to the theme that has been decided on, how does that come about? Is like, how do you decide which theme will get the focus in the upcoming year? And lastly, I would like to commend the Audit Chamber for also reflecting and being able to give a presentation, and once the members of parliament give their response to that presentation and their feedback, also willing to say, okay, this can be done better. It doesn't often happen that self-reflection takes place on the spot, so I do commend the Audit Chamber for that, and I look forward to seeing more reports and also more social media activities that the public can be involved and also educated and knowing what their rights are, and also in connection to that for the government to follow up on such so that you can create a better St. Martin for all. That should be the main focus, of course. So just the last question, and my compliments to today's presentation, because I do believe that it was fruitful for myself, and I also think that the public got some insights in how the Audit Chamber operates, and also taking responsibility and accountability where that is needed. And that is what I expect from our Audit Chamber. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Roseberg. I see that there's no other MPs that have any further comments or questions, so I'm going to pass the floor straight over to Mr. Gams, and you can decide if you would like it or Mr. de Jong would like to answer on your behalf, or if you need a few minutes. Oh, 1 second. I need you to press first. You press first and pass it. So, Mr. Gams, both of you can press it, but Mr. Gams, I'm going to give you the floor, and then you can pass it to Mr. de Jong afterwards.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the members of Parliament for their comments and the one question that we have, and we will do our utmost now to answer that one question from MP Roseberg. So, Keith, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chairman. My apologies for that just now. So the question from MP Roseberg was, in regards to the theme, how does that come about? Which theme will get the focus? Well, the selection of an annual theme, it follows a structured and independent process. We also look at the CAROSI, which is the regional body of all the audit chambers that we have in the region, to see what are they auditing this year. And we have deliberations on the topics. We, like I said, SDGs is an important factor, such as climate change, for example, as well. So each year, the Audit Chamber prepares its internal annual plan based on certain assessments. We have internally within the Secretariat, I sit with my senior staff and I sit with my RA to discuss what topics are important. And we analyze factors such as financial materiality, social relevance, recurring weaknesses, also in previous audits and reviews, but also legal and compliance risks. All those things come together, and we draft a plan, which we present, which the Secretariat then presents to the board for approval. And then also when things like let's call it a Soul Beach matter come up, then obviously we take that into account as well. The signals from earlier audits are very important. We've been focusing lately on reviews. Again, the progress meter is also a result of that. So once a theme is selected, then it guides the choice of the audits of that year. So for example, leave no one behind. What could that be? That could be anything, but it could also could be kids needing dental work, for example. Is there any plan from government? I'm just giving you an example. So during the 2025 year, we already think about certain audits that could come on along with that theme. Again, we present it to the board, and then for the board for approval, I think it's in April, And then according to our rules of order, the board then has the opportunity to amend the annual plan up to, I think it's December, for the reason that during the year, a lot of things can happen, and then you remain flexible in changing topics, not the theme, but the topics of audit, if necessary. I hope that answers the question.
Okay. All right. I see that there is no other. Thank you, Mr. De Jong, for answering all those questions, and Mr. Gums. And I see that there are no other MPs with any comments or questions. Before I continue, is there anything else you wanted to say before we close off this meeting? Yes, I give you back the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of Parliament. As we have seen from our presentation today, the 2024 annual report presents a balanced picture, one that acknowledges progress where it has been made, while candidly identifying areas where improvement is still required. Transparency requires honesty, and accountability requires follow-through. We would like to take this opportunity to thank you for the opportunity to present our 2024 annual report, and as mentioned earlier, our 2025 annual report will be completed before the end of this month and provided to Parliament once completed. We also would like to, at this time, as a board, thank the staff of the General Audit Chamber for their professionalism and dedication, as well as the audited ministries for their cooperation throughout the audit process. Most importantly, we thank Parliament for its continued support of independent public audit as a cornerstone of democratic governance. The relationship between the General Audit Chamber and Parliament is of fundamental importance, as Parliament relies on independent audit information to support its legislative, budgetary, and oversight function. At the same time, we, the Audit Chamber, benefit from parliamentary engagement that reinforces the relevance and impact of our work. So we trust that our presentation here this afternoon, will assist Parliament in its oversight role and contribute to the effective, transparent, and responsible management of public resources. We thank the members of Parliament for their attention today. Thank you.
Thank you very much again, Mr. Gums, Mr. De Jong, Ms. Peterson, and Ms. Dalla-Fringa for your presence here and answering all of our questions. I also would like to thank the members of Parliament for renewed interest in the work of the General Audit Chamber. And remember it next time the committees come around. I would like to thank the representatives for being here today. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of this meeting. Thank you all for your participation, and I hereby close this meeting.